I'm the type of person who gets heavily hyper-focused on one game for a long time, and plays it for days on end, and then drops it after a few months. Even some of my most played games, and favorite games for that matter. Rainbow Six Siege has its fun. I love the competitive aspect of it. I love making new strategies to find unique ways to win rounds, and it truly is the type of game that keeps me thinking. However, after a long night of playing it, I find myself tired of the game for at least a couple of weeks. I feel like I've done everything I can do to improve my strategies, and there's nothing else to be desired for a little while. Plus, after playing a match for 30 plus minutes, only to get absolutely stomped, it can get pretty demoralizing. Another thing I love is shiny hunting. It's one of those types of things where it takes tons and tons of patience, which I am willing to fork over from time to time. But all it takes is one excruciatingly long shiny hunt for me to feel like it's time for me to put down my Switch for a few months. That is quite simply just how I am with games. And yet there's always one game that I constantly find myself coming back to. Dead by Daylight. But why? What makes this game different from the others? It's a competitive game, it can be demoralizing at times for sure, and the learning curve takes just as much patience as something like shiny hunting, so why do I stick around? Well, a lot of reasons really. The date? August 1st, 2018. I'm a little high school guy looking for a game to play with friends over the summer break. So like any broke kid would do, I go over to the sweet free section in the PlayStation Store. Usually they offer a single player game that I had the habit of completely looking over, and then an already cheap party game that kept me and my friends occupied for a couple of nights. Honestly, at the time, that's exactly what Dead by Daylight was for me as well. Nothing more, nothing less, just a fun, fairly new, somewhat competitive multiplayer game to play with, or even against my good friends. It didn't take much convincing for me to get everyone on board playing this game, because it was free, and it really grabbed everyone's interest with a few licensed characters already in the game. So the plan was in place. We would all learn this game and become true professionals. And how did that go? Well, not well. In 2018, this game's strategy wasn't all that widely known, or at least I hadn't seen anything on it, neither of any of my friends. So when we played as Survivor, it was an absolute mess. Sure, we won a few games every now and then, but our games usually ended up with all of us dying on hook at the exact same time. And yet, we still had fun and revisited the game at least once a week. Even when I found myself just jonesing to play some Dead by Daylight, but no one was online, I was still covered because I had basically an all-new game to play when I clicked on that Play as Killer button. In all fairness, the first time I played Killer, I got absolutely destroyed and felt like I was hopeless, but honestly that feels like a rite of passage for playing the Killer in my opinion. And the fact that I still play Killer, debatably more than I play Survivor, is a huge testament to that. So, at this point you might be sitting there and wondering, well, okay, you're outlining the fact that you got absolutely stomped every time you played this game, so why did you keep playing? Well, that's because Dead by Daylight almost allows you to define how it's supposed to be played. Back in 2018, I played Dead by Daylight almost as a party game. We treated it like hide and seek, and our goal wasn't to absolutely destroy the killer facing us. It was just to have fun. We didn't care about meta perks. We would have looked at you like you had two heads if you mentioned the term looping. It was just fun. The most magical part of starting to play Dead by Daylight is that rather than feeling competitive, the game feels genuinely terrifying. You hear that terror radius as a new player, and you are running for the hills, no questions asked. You set off a hag trap and you're jumping 6 feet out of your seat every single time, without fail. You're working on a generator and a hillbilly runs at you full speed out of nowhere, and you are going to need to consider buying adult diapers for your next session. I'd bring up Stealth Myers, but he still scares me to this day, so that's not just for the new players. But yeah, we got absolutely destroyed a lot, but that just left us wanting to figure out how to make those situations fun and work around what got us killed last time. And if you have 5 people, you can go into custom games and treat it like a full-fledged party game and have one of your buddies be the guy you're running away from. It's one of the most fun gaming experiences you can have when you go into those custom games and just not take things seriously whatsoever. Sure, the novelty wears off and you'll find new party games that are just better than this one for that type of vibe, but like I said, this game allows the player to determine how it's meant to be played. Clearly it works, because 5 years later I enjoy this game so much that I'm making videos about it. And as you might be able to guess, I don't really treat this game as much of a party game anymore. Those custom games serve as more than just an outlet to mess around with friends though. They give you the full freedom to use any perk in the game, which brings us to my next point. Making different builds in this game is so much fun. And with new perks being added every few months, it feels like this will always be a draw when it comes to this game. Sure, they only add 3, 6 if you're lucky perks per season on each side, but those 3 perks combined with all of the rest in the game add so much range to your playstyle that it can keep you busy for so long. Just as an example, the newest update added 3 new perks: Dramaturgy, Plot Twist, and Scene Partner. Even just looking at one of these 3 perks, here's a list of perks that I personally have found that could possibly synergize with one. I'm sure there are others too, and you can use as many or as little of these perks as you'd like in order to mold a build that suits your playstyle. Every perk in this game is made to enhance your experience with different styles of play. Do you like repairing gens the whole game, avoiding killer at all costs? Try a gen rush build. Hyper focus, stakeout, prove thyself, and technician might suit your style. Don't like that build? Make your own. You see what I'm getting at here? That I could go on and on because there's just that many combinations that you can go through. Overall, there are just perks for everyone, and it keeps the game feeling fresh. Now, the argument is definitely there to say that the game is somewhat inaccessible for newcomers, as a lot of these perks are blocked behind locked characters, which, yeah, I fully understand that argument, and if you don't want to grind out the game to get those new perks, it can feel a little limiting. However, the game awards you with in-game currency each time you level up, which, once saved up for a while, you can either go and buy one specific DLC perk from the Shrine of Secrets, or you can use it to straight up buy a new character along with their 3 unique perks. Then, after that, you just need to level them up to Prestige 1, and you can use all of their perks on any character you'd like. Although it sounds like a huge grind to get there, it's truly not that bad, and an incentive like that is a huge thing for me personally that keeps me coming back to games. I'm always motivated to keep playing this game, and that remains to be the case, as even now, despite having hundreds of hours, there are still a decent amount of characters left that I don't have. And by the time I unlock 2 or 3 of them, 2 more are going to be released for me to work towards. And let's say I do unlock all of the characters. I fully prestige them, and now I have no characters left to work towards. Even then, there are still tons of cosmetics for your favorite characters available for that same currency. Plus the tomes. Plus the daily challenges. This game has so much content to work towards that even now I still feel like I'm missing something. Even beyond in-game incentives, let's get back to the actual gameplay. Now that I know how the game works, I play the game a little more seriously than I used to, and I'd say since about 2020 I've been playing this game and taking matches a little more seriously. 3 years later, and I feel like there is still this infinite source of information that I still have barely even tapped into. I'd consider myself pretty good at the game. I can keep a killer on my tail for a couple of minutes per chase if I try my absolute best, and yet there are still things that I'm not good at whatsoever. Currently I'm working on getting better at using 360 spins and chase to avoid hits more consistently. It's just small things like that you learn during games over time, and you add those to your arsenal and become even better at the game. The skill floor is pretty low in this game, and I feel like anyone can pick it up and find a way to enjoy themselves, even if it's just hiding and sticking to gens when the killer isn't around. But the skill ceiling is something that I believe is still yet to be reached. Every single day that I play this game, I see people getting better and better at it, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Earlier I mentioned the amount of advanced techniques there are to learn as the survivors. Now take that and multiply it by 33, soon to be 34, and that's the amount of added learning and content there is to be had on the killer side of things. While survivors all play the same aside from perks, each and every killer has a completely different playstyle with so many advanced techniques to learn. Let's take my main as an example. I main the pig. Her movement isn't all that great, she can't teleport across the map like a lot of killers, and her stealth ability is one of the worst in the game. So you'd think there wouldn't be much of an incentive to play as her, and yet I have more hours on the pig than any other killer, and it isn't even close. There's just something about the learning curve that comes with playing as the pig that I love. When you play your first game as her, your first instinct might be to stealth around and ambush as many survivors as possible, and then put traps on their heads whenever the opportunity arises. But that is simply just not the best way to go about things. The more you play, the more you realize that you need to be doing the little things, like spacing out your traps so there's constant pressure on the survivors at all times, saving your traps for when you feel like they're just about to pop a generator so it activates before the survivor even gets off the hook, realizing that the ambush is an outdated ability that needs reworked and therefore its only good use is to play mind games, and even at that there are better ways to go about. My point is, with each weakness, there's always a workaround, and those workarounds give so much more replayability and satisfaction that playing a debatably bottom tier killer like the pig is so rewarding and addictive. Not to say top tier killers aren't fun. Hell, go play a few blight games, bounce off the walls like a pinball, and tell me that that isn't just as addictive. And there are just as many techniques to learn with top tier killers as well. If you ever find yourself bored of your favorite killer, it really is worth picking up a new one and trying some of their more advanced techniques. While we're on the killer side, there is one more thing they have going for them that survivors don't, being add-ons. Yeah, survivors have item add-ons, but you're lying to yourself if you're going to sit there and tell me they're the same thing. Survivors get an extra few seconds of flashlight worth, while the nemesis can make his zombies move at the speed of light. Survivors can heal while in chase one time, the plague can see you through walls every time you vomit. Before Sadako was reworked, the literal best way to play her was by running add-ons to condemn survivors faster than usual. Add-ons can make or break a killer, and that's why even when tier lists are made for killers, add-ons are taken into consideration almost every time. So if you get to the point where you feel like you've learned everything there is to learn about a killer, check out their add-ons and see if there's any new ones that spark your interest. Listen, I could sit here all day and talk about more things you could do in Dead by Daylight, but realistically, the biggest takeaway is that there just simply won't be a point where the community doesn't have something to do in this game for a very long time. Criticize the developers all you want, but they made an amazing game with so much replayability, and that will continue to be the case with how much this community is still growing to this day. I haven't even touched on any of the community's ideas, but I heavily implore you to do so yourself. Even when I'm not playing this game, I still feel like I'm partaking in a community, and it's just such a special thing that's going on here. There is so much to experience with this game, and I plan on continuing to do so myself, and I hope you do too.